P. Sherman is a pun on fisherman. Darla's Australian. Philip Sherman is a naturalist in a family of dentists. 5 generations of dental work, 1895. Intelligent marine life, pianist parents, spying toys, Sigourney Weaver, world's best dad, triple timeline, Daddy Sherman, matching genetics, receptionist Barbara, 9 a.m. P. Sherman, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, triangulation, inheritance, blue divers, prime ministers, divorce, piranhas. This complexity, this borderline conspiratorial level of animated detail, I concluded all today as I lay out the family tree of Darla Sherman and the timeline of her family. All massive information hidden between the lines of Finding Nemo. Hello, I'm the Theorizer, and finally I'm finishing this awesome series of videos. This is easily the best one. Everything up until this point has just been fiddling with little evidence. This is the theory. It's an awesome series of videos. It's only 3 videos, this being of course the third and final, but of course if you haven't seen the first 2/3 of this mega theory, I will now link them in the white box in the top right corner. I hope you're all ready for the awesomeness because here it comes. All of the many details I've scoured so far can fit perfectly in one way, which I suppose is best displayed in a timeline format. I do love me some timelines, but before that, I'll recap the main details of Darla Sherman and her parents. We know that Darla's uncle, Philip Sherman, must be related to her through a male due to the last name. This means Philip Sherman has a brother who is Darla's father. Darla herself is now confirmed to indeed be Australian, as opposed to speculatively American. You see, because her recurrent photograph is seen in the Californian Marine Life Institute of Finding Dory, it makes you think that maybe one of her parents lives in America. And one of them does. She doesn't, though, despite it being implied that she only sees her uncle for a little while once a year. This is because her parents are very clearly not together anymore. She has clear obsessions and fascinations with things that she associates with people, but this fish addiction is not just because of Phil Sherman, but rather her father, who lives in California and works at the Marine Life Institute. Makes sense. She spends most of her time with her mom, who also lives in Sydney. Darla's aggression is not an uncommon thing to see in children of divorce, and almost implies that something really terrible happened with her father and mother. Darla's main orthodontist is Philip Sherman, given the fact that she receives a braces discount, but Phil's relations with her father makes her mother weary of too many visits. Her father likely visits her annually, time which she spends with that whole side of the family. Philip has a deep passion for diving and being a naturalist. It even surpasses his love of dentistry. In Finding Nemo, which takes place sometime around 2003, long story, Dr. Sherman mans his boat, the Aussie Flosser, to go out and find some fish. He kidnaps Nemo, thinking he's saving him. There is a mysterious additional man diving with him in identical but blue scuba gear. In the now infamous Essential Guidebook, it states that Dr. Sherman most often loves diving with his peers from dental school, but given the timing with Darla and the tourist-type way this man photographs the drop-off, I'm inclined to say that this is possibly his brother, Darla's dad, out with Dr. Sherman, looking for a fish to immortalize himself into Darla's memory yet again. They tried it exactly 1 year prior with Chuckles the goldfish. Darla's father desperately wants to keep ties to her and continuously buys her fish as a symbol of his occupation and passion. Her sheer excitement whenever she gets a fish, it symbolizes the family member who's never around. She's found a love of piranhas. All of this focus on fish. These two desperate men go so far as to photograph her in the office with a dead goldfish, just in an attempt to get some memory from her visit. Dr. Sherman keeps the photo alongside Daddy Sherman, who puts it up in his quarantine office at the Jewel of Morro Bay. Philip Sherman, mysteriously enough, is also a famous dentist working on the teeth of celebrities and such people as the Prime Minister of Australia. We literally see this in film. Now, I'm actually inclined to agree with the theory that the Super Carlin brothers posed regarding how her shirt could imply a famous musician family member. But like all things in Finding Nemo, the guidebook inverts the truth. And it's simply this. The guidebook openly says that Philip Sherman got Darla this shirt, which makes sense, given how oversized it is for her. He rarely sees her and barely knows her size, but I'm not calling her father an ex-guitarist or something, no. he was a pianist. Or at least, that's the only thing I could think of to tie the otherwise very random detail of Sherman's dental posters, which say they were made by pianists and dentists of Sydney. Naturalistic posters encouraging dental hygiene, with a random piano reference thrown in there, it's got to mean something, even if it's just a nonsensical Easter egg thrown in the face of logic. It's all tying into how Darla's mother is so alienated from her father. So what kind of treachery could instill such feelings of clear hostility, resulting in a violent child? Adultery? Fame does things to people, but adultery is always a default cliche in these cases. There's minimal proof for it, but we see multiple people in Finding Nemo and Finding Dory who could be candidates for cheating, believe it or not. In a second, though, I'll get to that, because something much more intense, something that comes seemingly out of left field, happens. The events of Finding Nemo lead Philip Sherman to, no joke, move to California. I know. He possibly even moved with his wife Barbara, but only if she's his wife. More on that later. He's there to study fish with his brother after learning that the fish in his dental office were intelligent enough to attack him and escape. Holy shit! Where did I pull this from? Let me explain. Because I think the animals in Finding Dory specifically are being studied for their intelligence. The very famous Pixar theory mega timeline delves into this a little bit. There are sections dedicated to how AI, humans, and intelligent animals all converge in the future, but make no mistake, this similar conclusion is only something I am coming to for Finding Nemo, based on evidence only from Finding Nemo. Because it's so true, and there seriously is no other explanation for the fresh mind blow I'm about to deliver. The animals in the Finding Nemo films are particularly intelligent creatures who can communicate with more than just voices and assimilate far beyond mere instinct. They are mutated and evolving. Darla's dad studies the increasing intelligence of marine life. An excellent example is Hank the octopus, who can literally camouflage, act bizarrely humanoid, and once again, like all fish, has high intelligence. He's notorious at the Institute for being clever and outwitting the staff. These animals are smart, and this fish hospital takes advantage of disabled marine life to study it. A good example for just how bizarre this movie series truly is how the fish speak to each other. Not only can they do it underwater, where sound travels terribly, but they can do it from literal bags away. Nemo can hear his dad scream from Nigel's beak as he's in a bag on the counter. He communicates with the tank gang through the same bag, and the tank gang's own members communicate with each other through the plastic bags after escaping. Even Peach, the starfish, has a bit of intrigue when she speaks while stuck to the side of the aquarium glass. The fish say they can't hear her when she's stuck, and then she flips back and says, "We got a live one," before, no joke, flipping right back onto the glass and talking. Now they can hear her fine? Yes, because they just got closer to her. She's flipped back the same way. See? It's because their form of communication is more sophisticated than simple sound waves traveling through water. And the Marine Life Institute is aware that some animals are developing this, albeit ones that can assimilate. Not ones like the anglerfish on the bottom of the sea, or ones like the brainless jellyfish, or ones like Becky, the mentally disabled bird. It's why the Marine Life Institute isn't really all that shocked when the fish do crazy things. It's brilliant. And the reason I know P. Sherman did move to Morro Bay is because he was supposed to make an appearance in Finding Dory. Now, I'm not sure exactly where this information comes from, but given the fact that it's riddled across multiple wikis and the fact that, remember, Pixar confirmed P. Sherman is the man shearing sheep from Boundin, and it takes place in Western America, bang. Even if it's just his model, that's still unique enough for them to mention, and each piece of trivia proves the other. The trivia of his planned Finding Dory voice role was likely from a bonus commentary. Even disregarding all of this cyclical evidence, we know the obvious facts of Darla's photo being there, and lots of Californian brochures being on P. Sherman's office wall. P. Sherman lives in California now. I'm not even sure, but I think I saw his Aussie Flosser boat being hauled on a freeway in Finding Dory. He's a naturalist. He works in tandem with his family to prove the intelligence of animals, and it was a speaking role. He was important enough to be here. It was cut because the voice actor passed away in 2011, however. So animals are smart. This should come as no surprise to anybody, honestly. Even fish who rarely see the outside world, like Marlin, know all about the things humans do. He knows what balloons are, but not dentists. It's interesting. I'm even prompted to think that the person who touched Hank and traumatized him by supposedly ripping off one of his arms was a Sherman. It would be the kind of thing for Pixar to do, but there's literally zero evidence for that, and Occam's razor shreds it to bits. Darla's got a love of fish, she obsesses with trivia on piranhas, and this is a hell of a lot of speculation, but it's all tied down properly. My final piece of speculation before I throw a family tree in here is that Barbara, Philip's receptionist, is his wife. She knows Darla well, she calls Philip love, she's the appropriate age, and there's nothing totally crucial here, but we can put her as his wife for now, just to fill the slot on the family tree. So here it is. Darla is the daughter of an occupational MLI naturalist with a hobby for pianos, and her mother is a Sydney woman who had a very vicious breakup with her husband. Maybe their alienation was built over time as he lived in California, or maybe he cheated, I don't know, but the aggression was so great that it caused Darla to become an animal killer. Daddy Sherman has a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, and a great-great-grandfather who all practiced dentistry at 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, and their title was passed on to Philip, Darla's uncle. We can assume Philip is the older sibling for reasons such as the title being passed to him, among other little observational features. Philip is an occupational dentist with a hobby for naturalism who shifts his practice to California after the events of Finding Nemo. He could be married to a Sydney woman named Barbara. Wham! That's the tree. Before the timeline, though, there are 3 more small things that we need to establish. The MLI seafloor, the owners of the quarantine office, and genetics. First, the Marine Life Institute has some interesting things lurking beneath the surface of its surrounding waters. There are a few Easter eggs, but most prominently, there are a couple of cars. What could this mean? What kind of person drives cars into the ocean next to an aquarium? Oh my god. Dory's fish escape has happened before. Fish have escaped from here more than once. It's the only thing that makes sense. It's why this hospitable aquarium doubles as a study center. They are used to this sort of madness. It's why they're aware of fish intelligence in the first place. This is a huge detail, but there isn't much more I can really say about it, other than that it supports my theory. Another thing we see on the seafloor in a few places is a best dad ever mug. It could be nothing, but in my opinion, it's a reference to the idea that a father works here. Obviously, the chances of that are very likely, but given our newfound knowledge that Pixar has hidden this very specific story in their films, could it be a rather direct reference to Darla's father? I'm not sure, but the seafloor is clearly important. Second on the list is the quarantine office, the specific one that contains Darla's photograph. This is probably the most revealingly intriguing point of these 3 mini topics because, believe it or not, we see the people who put Dory into this office, the ones that captured her. Now, whether or not they're the ones who own the office, well, I cannot be sure, but they linger on the male of this duo for quite some time as he makes a joke. He is then scolded by the female. In the background of this office, we can also see an automotive coupon, a map of the oceans, a picture of a glacier, and a similar-looking tropical ad to the one Dr. Sherman had. The twosome that enter the office, at first I thought she called him Phil, which would have put another rapid spin on things, but not only did she, well, not call him Phil, but the people who put Dory in this room aren't the ones healing her. This is quarantine, and a more technical sort of chemist would be the one to work in this spot, as seen with the beakers. The woman here does clarify that the man is a scientist, but everyone working here is technically. So we need someone with a similar build to Dr. Sherman, who looks like the diver, and who works in quarantine. When Hank scuttles around the corner, a man in another office picks up the phone and says, "Hi, how are you?" to some mysterious other person in the building. This is the office in which we see that pesky calendar, which is etched with permanent dates. You know, it's not like the one that Dr. Sherman could mess up with dry erase, although it's got the same format. The interesting thing, however, is that the month Finding Dory takes place can actually be pinpointed a bit better by looking at how much of the calendar is flipped so far. It's not January, February, or any time after June, and it's a month that can have 31 days, so it's another Sunday the 1st. This leaves March 2009, May 2005, and March 1998. What am I doing? Sorry, that's what part 2 was for. It's just, again, the dates are confusing. What's most important here is the man in the room. He doesn't look to be old enough to be Dr. Sherman's brother. He's much younger. He's looking for Hank the Octopus like the rest of the MLI. Point is, while either he, the male from the duo, or some other scientist could be Darla's dad, there's evidence all around of this father having a new partner. the female in the duo, for example. We see both of the men again, loading the Cleveland truck in quarantine. I do not know, but it's one of these workers in this building. The picture proves that it absolutely, positively has to be. You'd think that he'd have an Australian accent, but we don't get to hear all of the people speak, and accents can be fickle anyways, so moving on to the final topic here, genetics. Darla has incredibly distinct green eyes and red hair, which are extremely recessive genes, making it highly likely that one of her parents has these features. Philip Sherman does not seem to have these features. He has blue eyes and brown hair, as seen in previous photos before it began to gray. We see a bald man in Sherman's waiting room, right age, with greenish eyes, and because it could be either parent who has those recessive genes, this could in fact be her dad, who parked his car after quickly dropping off Darla. I honestly don't know. The criteria is specific, but the list of candidates is immense, and this video is getting downright frighteningly long, so I'll wrap it up. If I were to flatten this whole entire series of events out into a timeline, I'd probably make it double-sided, one for the events of California and one for the events of Sydney. It begins with the creation of 42 Wallaby Way as a dentist's office in 1895 and Sherman I owning it. It is passed down to Sherman II. It is then passed down to Sherman III. Finally, it is passed on to Sherman IV. It is a famous dentist business at this point, working on celebrities and the Prime Minister. Ads all throughout the newspaper. Sherman IV is the father of the two brothers I have been calling Philip and the Darla daddy. Philip's duty is to maintain this tradition, and he honestly doesn't mind doing dental work. He goes to university and loves it, gets a ton of certificates, joins academies, and even wins tons of awards in his younger years. He has dedicated his life to dentistry, but his true hobby revolves around nature, and all of this leaves him no time to have children of his own, but he might be married to a woman named Barbara, his receptionist. It's very apparent that he has no children given his behavior towards Darla. He's around 50 to 60 given his appearance. Meanwhile, younger sibling Daddy Darla doesn't inherit the dentistry business and pursues a similar passion to his brother, that of marine life and nature. His additional passion is music, or at least as far as those little hints on Darla's shirt and the possible piano link on the poster is concerned. He might have had a few music businesses based on these clues and the shirt and poster Philip buys, but after a vicious breakup with his wife from alienation, cheating, or some other nasty thing, he leaves. He even had a daughter with this woman, and he's forced to leave her too. This takes a toll on Darla's aggression, and she develops an obsessive fascination with her father's hobby, fish. Part of the guidebook I could not translate mentioned how Darla feels like she needs a fish, and if it doesn't appear as though it likes her, she'll snap. That's as much as I could sort of make out from the blur. Her father has studied animals for some time though, and has learnt of their uniquely evolving properties. He moves to California so he can work at a center for studying fish. He keeps his daughter in his mind at all times, keeps a photo of her in his lab, and visits her once a year. Philip is still Darla's orthodontist, but aside from that, Dr. Sherman only spends large amounts of time with her when her father is around. The mother is quite vindictive, you see. On Darla's 7th birthday, she is given a goldfish named Chuckles, who she kills by shaking its bag. The Sherman brothers take a photo of her and keep it, despite its abjectly macabre nature. 2 copies, seen in 2 places. As Dr. Sherman says, exactly 1 year later, on her 8th birthday, Finding Nemo takes place. Darla's daddy and Dr. Sherman go out and find her a fish. She spends a week with her dad before visiting her uncle. Madness ensues. She is traumatized by the events that occur during her visit with her uncle. After all this goes down, Philip acknowledges the brilliance of his animals. The remainder of his tank fish escape through the window after breaking his 2003 device, and he's had it. He gives it all up to be with his brother. He becomes a naturalist, fulfilling his lifelong passion. We get confirmation of this in Finding Dory's pre-production, and in the short film Bound In, which shows him tending to the land nature as well. He does all this because fish have been acting out. They've been getting smarter and escaping places like the Institute. Sherman is intrigued, and he joins the study. Then, 1 year after the events of Finding Nemo, Finding Dory occurs. Dory's hijacking of the truck is the final straw for this fishy institute, and, along with Hank the octopus's elusive nature, animal intelligence has been leaked to the world. So what happens after Finding Dory? Well, now I have to finally go into the territory I didn't want to, but I'm honestly left with no choice. Remember how I said Easter eggs don't count? It's true. Ones like the impossible to take picture of Darla do not count. But ones like, I you not, Riley from Inside Out visiting the Jewel of Morro Bay do count, because Finding Nemo is the hidden fourth series that takes place in the Imagine Pixar universe. For those who don't know, I've been constructing a major theory since 2016 that proves how not all Pixar films are connected, but the Toy Story films, Inside Out and Up, most certainly are, because of a woman named Imagine. The very famous Pixar theory is all about Easter eggs. This is about facts that tie the movies together, identical locations, confirmed by the directors, and it's all because of this woman named Imagine. And this Finding Nemo theory trilogy I've made is nothing more than a backdoor sequel to that series of videos. You should watch them, or rather only part 1, which I will link in the white box above now, because it all ties in. We see Riley there, in the Institute, visiting. I've even pondered Ratatouille fitting into this mini-verse as well, because of Renata. If you want to know what I mean there, consult my trilogy of theories on Gusteau, which I won't link because I'm running out of space and time here. Darla's cameo in Toy Story is physically impossible, but they do take place in the same universe. Riley, who lives in the close-by city of San Francisco, confirms it. Absolutely. Did you know that Sigourney Weaver also voices a robot from WALL-E? Almost like it's an AI announcer in Finding Dory 2. Nah, that's too ultimate timeline-ish for me. But when you do a deep dive like this into the actual evidence minus surface level speculation, the famous Pixar theory, believe it or not, gets inverted, just like everything else, and it's amazing. But I refuse to share it all. It would take too many videos. But I won't hide it for long. So many connections, even in just this Finding Nemo duology. The scuba diver in Sherman's tank could be spying on the fish's IQ, or Imogene's "wishing you were here" line could be referencing Australia. All of the Pixar films that take place between 1900 and the present, minus maybe The Incredibles, can be tied together. I'm not saying this is the Pixar theory, this is far different. Renata from Ratatouille and Darla's father are connected. Orange hair like Linguini. Oh my shit! Imagine is Renata Linguini and Darla's mother. Theory channels, don't you dare steal my flow here. I'm making a Ratatouille theory as we speak. And until next time, I'm the Theorizer. Subscribe immediately. This is far from over. I have never in my life been so excited for theorizing here. My upload schedule is utterly packed. And you should click the bell too to join this madness while it lasts, because this just got amazing. I'm here to analyze it deeper next time, but there's already a basis I've just posed. Okay, outro time.